Hey guys, and happy Homebrew Wednesday. So this week I have a little story. I was out touring around the Facebooks, checking out some of the groups that I'm a member of, and one specifically here in Norway is called For Us som Brygg Selv. It's like for us who brew ourselves. And there was a question by a guy named Daniel who was asking about if anybody knew of the water profile in his area, or if he could send out his water, right? Because it was well water and he wanted to get it tested. But any of the tests that are, done locally, they're very, very expensive. And of course, a lot of people recommended, things like white ward labs and sending out, to the U.S. or something to get analyzed. And so, I kind of felt for this guy, and having a Lamont water brew kit, I sent him a private message and said, hey, you know what? Just send me your water, or if you're in the Oslo area, let's go ahead, hook up, give me a sample of your water, and I'll test it for you. It ended up turning into a beer swap. So I gave him a few beers, he gave me a few beers, and one of the beers that he gave me, I have right here. It's a classic dry IPA. So let's go ahead and taste this guy. It's got quite a bit of carbonation.
So take it nice and slow.
That's all I need. Look at that. Nice clear beer. Some great carbonation going on in there. Yeah, not too shabby. Let's go ahead and get the aroma. Okay. It's got a good aroma. Just a hint of some sort of aged hops. Let's go ahead and dive in. Cheers. Thanks, Daniel. Let's go ahead and taste it. Nice carbonation, really nice mouthfeel. Light on the bitterness. In the aroma, I was thinking of the word musty. I was thinking about, just a bit of, when I said aged hops, just a bit of that mustiness. None of that in the flavor. Overall, it's a really nice, nice tasting IPA. Bitterness on this one is pretty low, actually. In terms of the hoppiness, the flavor of the hops, a little bit of fruity, slight hints of citrus. It's got a nice bready maltiness to it, nice light breadiness. Tons of carbonation, maybe a little bit too much. But beyond that, it's a very nice beer. Thanks a lot, Daniel. Okay, so this week, I've been busy doing the Kveik experiment that I brewed back about a week and a half ago. And then together with Sticky Tentacles, Christian, he came over and helped me bottle all of these guys. And then we did a nice tasting, and that's on the Kveik update number 3. Had a great time. He was over here Friday. We probably spent about 5 or 6 hours together, and as always with him, it was just good times, good vibes, laughter was had, good times was had, good beer was had. Really looking forward to it again. Can't say enough good things. So for the Kveik tasting, wow, unbelievable the taste that we were getting out of there. Things that I'd never tasted in any other beers that I had bought before. So that's definitely an experiment that's extremely interesting, and that I'm going to continue to follow up. But one aspect of it, of course, was Kveik is yeast that comes from Norwegian farmhouses or people in the country who are brewing these beers on a regular basis, or sometimes just a semi-annual basis. However, one of the key things about them is that almost all of them are most likely contaminated with lacto, or maybe even pedo, or who knows what, because they never go through a complete analysis, or not all of them have been through an analysis. Some of them have, actually. And some of them have been isolated and now are being sold on the commercial market by, big vendors like the Yeast Bay, as well as Imperial Yeasts. I think Giga Yeast Labs or Omega Yeast Labs are also distributing them. And Lucky 13 Brewing, I think, is one that's going to be trying one of those out. So very few of them are isolated. Most of them are contaminated. And there's this one interesting story that Amundsen, who gave me the yeast, told me. He said they went to a beer festival, and at that beer festival, one of the guys brought a Kvike beer that he made with yeast that he had isolated. He used just the yeast to make the beer, and he made a good beer. But when he shared it with everybody else, all of the other people who made Kvike at this festival, people looked at him and told him that he didn't know how to brew, or that he was a bad brewer because his beer wasn't sour. It didn't have that funkiness that all of the others in the festival had. So the fact that he had brought a beer that didn't have some sort of sourness or funkiness to it was considered a bad beer, and he was therefore a bad brewer and didn't know how to brew beer. And thought that was particularly funny, so I thought I'd share that with you. However, so how do you decontaminate beer? Well, of course, you can go ahead and wash the yeast as much as you can, and then plate the yeast and try and isolate it, using agar and plates, and going that route. I don't know that route very well. I'm not a yeast wrangler yet. Don't have a microscope in order to do those sorts of things yet. That may come later on this year. However, so I'm looking into other ways about how to do these things. Like one of the most popular ways, of course, is to take a contaminated yeast culture and acidify it. So basically what you're going to do is create a water solution using phosphoric acid or some other acid to bring the pH down to about 2.2, add in your yeast slurry that's contaminated, and allow it to set inside this solution for about 12 to 24 hours. And let's say your yeast culture at that point was 98% healthy yeast. Over the course of the next 24 hours, you may kill off most of the bacteria or the contaminants in that solution, including the pediococcus. However, what you're going to be left with after the fact is probably somewhere around the 70%, maybe 75% of viable yeast that's still in that solution, which is a good solution. I mean, that's more than enough in order to build or propagate more yeast from in a starter. However, you're not guaranteed to kill all of the lactobacillus. Lactobacillus is very robust in that way. They can survive an acidified environment. So I was looking into other ways, alternative ways, in order to decontaminate a contaminated solution or culture. And what I came across was
sodium chloride.
I believe that's what it is. Put a title down here. And adding that to a acidified solution can result with better results than doing an acid wash. So using this new compound, you can basically eliminate all of the bacteria, including the pediococcus and the lactobacillus, and be left with just the yeast. However, I do want to note that if you have wild yeast in there, it won't kill the wild yeast because, well, yeast is yeast. And what you're trying to do is kill all of the bacteria, including lactobacillus and pediococcus, but leave the yeast. And this is one of the ways to do it. What I found was, this solution, actually, you can go and buy it like any one of your water pool sort of vendors. They have this solution that you use to add chlorine to the water. But there's an easier way. The easier way is using something called chlorine dioxide. And these are little tablets that you can buy at places like REI or any one of your sports outdoors stores. And these tablets you add to water to kill the bacteria that you find, the water that you find out and about, while you're hiking. And you want to be able to drink the water but not hurt yourself, so you add in one of these tablets to clean it. Here's what one of those packages look like. Now, I just ordered this online from Life Systems, and it's the chlorine dioxide tablets is what you're looking for. These specific tablets, I got 30 of them in this package. Each one of these tablets come with 3 parts per million or 3 milligrams per liter of chlorine dioxide per tablet in a liter of solution. So basically what that means is if I add in one of these tablets into a liter of water, it's going to add 3 parts per million of chlorine dioxide into that solution. And then I can add in my yeast or contaminated yeast, and hopefully it will scrub clean the yeast and kill all of the bacteria, lactobacillus and pediococcus and anything else. Now, 3 parts per million is too low actually. The recommended density of chlorine dioxide that you want in the solution is closer to 25 parts per million. 25 to 40 is actually preferred. And some of the tests that have been done have boosted the parts per million up to 100 and still had really, really good results with the yeast viability after the cleansing. And what's interesting about this is that you can use this and it doesn't take 12 to 24 hours like an acid wash. This will be done in like 15 minutes. So basically 1 tablet, 3 parts per million per liter. You can cut that in half a liter. That's going to be 6 parts per million. If you cut it down to 250 milliliters, then it's going to be 12 parts per million, and so on. And you really don't need that much. If I have a vial of yeast that I believe is contaminated, and then all I'll have to do is reduce it to about 100 milliliters, and then I'll have almost enough parts per million in the solution to clean it. So if I use 2 tablets and 100 or 150 milliliters of solution, I should be able to clean yeast from, let's say, a 100 milliliter solution of contaminated yeast from like a yeast vial, something like that. I don't have the microscope in order to back this up, but science rocks, and science backs this up. That the chlorine dioxide can be used to clean your yeast and get rid of any of the bacteria that's in it. Now, what usually happens is that people will take this, clean the yeast, after they're doing a starter, they'll clean the yeast, and as soon as the 15-20 minutes is done, they'll do this just before they pitch the yeast. So then they pitch the yeast, and anything else that's in that solution is going to be dead, and it's not going to live on through the fermentation of the beer. Now, what I would probably do personally is clean the yeast with the chlorine dioxide, and then put that into a, isolate that into another starter, build up even more of that culture so I ensure long-term viability, and then also dilute whatever the chlorine dioxide adds to that solution, and then use some of it in fermentation and then store the rest of it. As I understand it, if you do clean your yeast using this sort of scenario, it won't store long term. So you're not looking at like 2 months later. It's probably going to be your yeast is probably going to be dead at that point. So that's why people will clean the yeast using this way and then immediately pitch it, because they'll get all of the viability that they had originally. They're still all alive. So by diluting it, if you were to wash it again with sterilized water, then you're probably going to be able to have that yeast live a little bit longer. Anyways, I just thought that was interesting. I want to share it with you. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to actually try and clean these yeast. I may eventually. I would like to be able to share those results with you, using some sort of lab equipment and give you a visual indication of the actual bacteria that's in a pre-clean solution, and then the post results. Yeah, after that, I think that would be pretty cool. Anyways, yeah, I thought I'd share that with you. How do you clean yeast? You know, if acid wash won't do it for you, chlorine dioxide. Okay, also want to give a special shout out to DrHans. DrHans was kind enough to send me a sample of his gingerbread man beer. So really looking forward to cracking this one open. It's a Christmas spiced winter beer. He brewed this up in December 20th, 5.8%. And look at that. That's just fantastic. I love that artwork. That's pretty cool. Thank you so much, DrHans. I'll give this a proper beer review. And yeah, if you guys don't know DrHans, I'm sure most of you do. If you don't, go ahead, check out the links down in the description and give them a sub. That said, guys, that's all I've got going on in my neck of the woods. I hope you guys are all having a hell of a week and a better weekend. Cheers.